right, welcome back to the Vegas Take. Sharp and Shapiro. So glad you could join us. Every day, it seems like Donald Trump gives us more material to talk about. I always say that he's really my producer. He gives me content. Donald Trump is my content producer. But I'll tell you what, we got a lot going on in the news, and we have some plagiarism questions to ask the man that is on the line with us right now in regards to Joe Biden, Scott Baio. It's a crazy situation, and we always love having him on every Wednesday because he's always honest with us, and we appreciate that. The very own Michael Avenatti. Michael, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
Hey, where's Chachi?
So, Michael, we got a controversy here I have to talk about. It seems like you always come on our show and there's something controversial surrounding you, right? So, Joe Biden yesterday, he says this term that you've said in the past, make America America again. So you go on your social media account, and I'm not going to say you pretty much said he plagiarized, but you did accuse him of taking your line. So here's what happened. I go on social media yesterday, and I say you're coming on our show. Scott Baio sends me a DM today, and he sends me a video of him back in the 2016 Republican National Convention using the same term, and he seems to be livid. Even Rush Limbaugh talked about this story this morning. So tell me what the hell is going on here. Did you ever hear Scott Baio say that before, or was that just a term that you made up on your own? Set the record straight for us.
Well, I never heard Scott Baio use that phrase before. I certainly did not watch his speech from the Republican National Convention. I haven't heard Scott Baio say anything in probably about, 39 years when I used to watch Happy Days. I just really haven't kept up with Chachi. I don't know. Maybe I'm behind the times. But no, I did not hear him use that phrase. That was a phrase that I came up with for use in the 2020 campaign. I traveled around the country when I was exploring a run last year. I used that phrase repeatedly, including at a number of big events, the Wing Ding event in Iowa, which is a pretty well-known event where there was over, I think, 11 or 1,200 people at. And it was a cornerstone of the message that I delivered relating to why it was necessary for the Democrats to defeat Donald Trump in 2020. I'm not upset with Joe Biden or his campaign for using it. I think it's a damn good message. I saw it resonate with a lot of people. I thought the messaging worked. So, look, if I have something that can assist somebody in defeating Donald Trump, anyone can steal that from me, whatever it is, with the exception of my kids.
Yeah, that makes sense, and I understand that. And I said on the air not that long ago, there has to be a chance that you weren't watching the Republican National Convention. Were you even watching it 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
I will tell you, I watched Melania's address, which, basically I felt like I had a DVR on from Michelle Obama's
right.
address.
She was the one who was actually accused. Let me just say that she was the one who was actually accused, or at least people in the campaign, because it was practically word for word from Michelle Obama's speech. So if anybody wants to talk about plagiarism, it should be Melania Trump and people that put that speech together for her. I remember that story.
Yep. So I watched that, and I watched Trump's speech at the convention, and that was about all that I watched from the convention. It was all I could stomach. I ran out of Pepto-Bismol.
Well, now that we're on the subject of conventions, was there somebody at the Democratic convention, either in 2016 or 2012 or even 2008, going back, that you said to yourself, "Wow, this guy's like"? Did you say that when Barack Obama was in Boston for the Democratic convention? Were you thinking that this guy might be president someday?
I'm sorry.
Michael, are you still there?
Yep, I'm here. I lost you for a minute.
That's okay. No, I was just talking all these other Democratic conventions back in the day. I mean, when you see somebody like Barack Obama back in Boston, I'm trying to remember. Was that 2008 or was that? I'm trying to remember.
Barack Obama?
Yeah,
2008.
Yeah. I mean, when you watched him give that speech at the Democratic National Convention in Boston, were you saying to yourself, "Wow, this guy could be president someday"?
I was impressed by that speech, but I'll tell you the greatest convention speech that I think that I've ever watched or witnessed, and that is Mario Cuomo's 1984 address to the Democratic National Convention, where he talked about the shining city on the hill and countered the speech that Reagan had given. I think that's one of the greatest speeches of my lifetime. If people haven't listened to that or watched it, I would urge them to go back and do so. And in fact, I had occasion not long ago, probably about 5-6 months ago, to go back and watch that speech. And there's a lot of messages that resonate today. It's a lot, very similar circumstances to 1984 in a lot of ways. I hope the election result, of course, is different, namely that Trump is not reelected as Reagan was in 84.
Right. All right. I want to ask you about Nancy Pelosi because she made a statement not that long ago where she said that she doesn't necessarily want the president impeached, but she wants him in jail. What do you make of that statement? Because I think it's a little strange.
Well, I think she's trying to have her cake and eat it, too. She wants to appear to be, tough on the president while at the same time avoiding what I believe is her constitutional duty and absolute obligation, and that is to begin an impeachment inquiry, and the House should pass impeachment charges against the president of the United States, and he should be forced to undergo a trial in the U.S. Senate. The interesting thing about trials is you don't know what's going to happen during trials. You don't know how people are going to testify.
Especially
you don't know what evidence is going to come out. I mean, no one can predict the outcome of a trial with absolute certainty.
Mm-hmm.
Does it appear that the Senate would clear Trump? Yes, it appears that way. Are those the overwhelming odds? Yes. But no one can guarantee that. And I think there's a lot to be said for the American people seeing the evidence against Donald Trump and those around him, what he engaged in, et cetera. And, frankly, I think it's absurd that we're going on 12 weeks now since the Mueller report findings were at least initially discussed. It was on that Sunday, the 24th of March. Mueller still hasn't testified. No one's been held in contempt, or at least there hasn't been any serious repercussions from it. An impeachment inquiry hasn't started. And then the Democrats want to know why they're always seen as weak, because they are weak in many ways. I mean, it's a disgrace. If the Republicans were in Congress and you had a Democrat in the White House, they would have already passed impeachment charges.
You know who's not weak, in my opinion, is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Do you think she is the future of the Democratic Party, Michael?
She's not weak, and I have a lot of respect for her, but I will tell you that I don't think that she's the future of the party. And I'm not prepared to turn over the keys to AOC, the keys to the Democratic Party, because I think it ultimately would be a lot like Thelma and Louise. I think that the amount of following that she has is impressive. I think she has a lot of very good ideas. I like how aggressive she is, especially in her questioning. But I don't think that you can take someone who gathered, I think it was about 16 or 18,000 votes in the Bronx in a very liberal district, and all of a sudden extrapolate that out across the nation and decide that she is now the beacon bearer for the Democratic Party. Because when you go to a lot of these key electoral states on a national level, like Ohio or Michigan or Wisconsin, Florida, and the like, her positions don't necessarily play as well as they do, let's say, in the Bronx.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that she may very well have a future in the party. Again, she's not weak, and I respect the hell out of her for that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not ready to give her the keys to the party.
Yeah, I don't think many are yet. I would tend to agree with you on that one. Mike, I wanted to talk a little bit about Jon Stewart. Obviously, he's a very talented comedian, writer, producer, director, and of course, an activist. And I thought his testimony in front of Congress yesterday was emotional. It was telling. And I every single word he said, I believe to be 100% true. I think there's a bunch of cowards in Congress, many of them who didn't even show up. And we're talking in regards to 9/11 first responders and the fund bill that needs to go through 2020. I wanted to get your thoughts on that, Jon Stewart's testimony. And I would imagine you probably agree with everything he had to say yesterday.
100%. I thought he was extraordinary. I thought his method of communication was extraordinary. I mean, he's a great communicator. I was very, very impressed. And it would be great if we could have more people like him in Congress, in leadership positions, and hopefully on behalf of the Democratic Party, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
We need more people like Jon Stewart who are not afraid to speak their mind and really know how to convey a message.
Mm-hmm. So a story came out today that says at least 16 Donald Trump associates had contact with Russia during the campaign or transition. Have you seen that story, and what is your response to it?
Well, I did see the story. I think it's very disturbing. I think equally, if not more disturbing, is the comments that Trump made today during his interview with George Stephanopoulos with ABC, where he basically talked about the fact that if a foreign power had, to quote him, opposition research on a opponent, that he would listen to the foreign power and take the information. You know, I'm a guy that worked on in over 42 states on over 150 campaigns across about 7 years way back when, and that's what I did. I did opposition research. Mm-hmm. You know, and I will tell you that when I was doing opposition research in a number of very high-level campaigns, had I been approached by individuals with checkered past, let's say a criminal background or something of that nature, we wouldn't have taken the information, let alone a foreign power. Mm-hmm. I mean, it is shocking to me that is his position in light of what has transpired over the last 2 years, and it should be disturbing to all Americans, regardless of where they line up politically.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. That's extremely disturbing. If you're just joining us, attorney Michael Avenatti. Okay, Michael, let's have some fun with your boy Biff, Don Jr. Okay, so I was talking about this story earlier in the week. Don Jr. and Eric Trump walk into a bar. It sounds like a great, first start to a joke, right? They walk into this Irish pub, right? They're representing the president and the administration. They claim to buy drinks for everybody in shots. And then they walk out of the bar, and when the manager goes up to them, they say, "Sorry, I don't have any cash on us." They leave the bar, and then I believe it was the Trump golf course that was forced to pay the tab. I mean, to me, a lot of people might say, well, this isn't really a big deal. But to me, it is a big deal. Who walks into a bar, buys people's drinks, and then say, "Sorry, I don't have any cash on me," and leave, especially when you're the sons of the president of the United States? It's absurd to me. I mean, what do you make of this? I know you're really close with Biff. What do you make of this story?
Well, like father, like sons, I guess, right? I mean, they must have thought that they were that these were contractors in New York or something, right? This is what you do. You're supposed to stiff these people. By the way, last time I checked, you can use credit cards overseas.
Yeah, exactly.
To pay for things. I doubt that they did not have any credit whatsoever, any credit cards in order to pay the bill. They were probably just looking for somebody else to pay the bill.
I just don't understand how you could be the son of the president of the United States and walk out of a bar and not pay the tab. I just don't understand that. What did you make of the Axios interview with Jared Kushner? I wanted to ask you a little bit of that. Now, I think Jared Kushner is an idiot. I've said that on the show many and many a times. His father gave Harvard $5 million so he could get into the university. He's never done anything in his life except lose his father's money. What did you make of that interview? Because I thought he made himself to look like a complete ass on this show, and he doesn't do a lot of interviews. I think he's way in over his head. He should never have been in that position in the first place. And he said a lot of idiotic things, especially when it comes to Donald Trump being a racist, and then asked about the birtherism issue where, Donald Trump, as you know, for 5 years said that Barack Obama was not born in this country. It was a lie. He was wrong. And then when Kushner was asked about it, he said, well, that happened a long time ago. I wasn't a part of it. And then the person who did the interview, who I think did a fantastic job, said again, I know you weren't a part of it, but is it racist? And he refused to answer the question. What do you make about that the cowardliness of Jared Kushner in that interview?
Well, I was actually surprised that Ivanka let him lose the ball gag for the interview. Look, there's no question as to why that relationship works, right? I mean, We all know who wears the pants in that relationship.
Yes.
It's Ivanka Trump, who you can say a lot of things about her, but she's pretty intelligent. The woman is certainly not stupid, but he looked terrible in that interview. I now know, of course, why he doesn't grant a lot of interviews. He granted that interview with Axios because he thought he was going to, I'm sure, get a lot of softball questions. He looked absolutely terrible. I think he could play himself on Saturday Night Live in the next season, and it would be even funnier than last season, frankly.
See, I
thought it was pathetic.
Yeah, it was completely pathetic. What do you make of Saturday Night Live? See, I actually like Alec Baldwin. I think he does a very good Donald Trump impersonation. I enjoy it. And then what does it say about our president that sometimes he spends more time attacking Saturday Night Live than he does, talking about issues like, for example, the homeless or, people or food stamps or people that need help in this country. But he spends more time attacking TV shows like CNN, MSNBC, and Saturday Night Live.
Well, I mean, he's a student of the media, right? I mean, this is a guy that's always focused on what people are saying about him, about his policies, about his family, et cetera. And that's why he's obsessed with Saturday Night Live. And he watches so much television. I mean, really his time with The Apprentice is in many ways what put him on the map with widespread popularity and poured the foundation, if you will, to allow him to run for the presidency. I also like Alec Baldwin on Saturday Night Live. I was disappointed to hear that he is probably not going to come back. But, I saw his comments about why he's not going to come back, namely that he's just tired of taking the abuse, not necessarily from Trump, but from those around Trump. And, I will tell you that I can identify with that. I mean, I've said it before, I think on your show, and I'll say it again. This environment in which we exist now, especially on the political side, is incredibly toxic. It's more toxic than it's ever been before, and I don't see it reversing anytime soon, unfortunately. And we have social media to thank for that in many ways. But I think Alec Baldwin is probably just tired of dealing with all the hate and the trolls and all the bullshit that he has to deal with on a consistent basis. Yeah,
and he's getting older. Michael, how do you think people are going to vote in 2020? Are they going to vote based on what Donald Trump does or what he has said, or do you think they'll find that inconsequential because it doesn't really affect their lives?
Well, I think that the Democrats need to be concerned, and we should not be taking him for granted and assuming that he's going to automatically lose. I really believe that firmly. I'll give you a stat that should be maybe disturbing to a lot of people that are listening, and maybe some of the people will welcome it. And that is that in the history of the United States, well over 200 years, there has never been an incumbent president who has sought re-election with a decent economy who has lost. It's never happened in the history of the United States. Now, there's never been a president quite like Donald Trump. And so, he broke the mold when he was elected, and maybe he'll break the mold, hopefully, on the way out. But people have to remember that voters vote their pocketbook first. And, you go and you speak to voters in some of these key states, as I have, and they don't view Donald Trump in the same way that perhaps folks in Las Vegas or L.A. or New York or some of these other major cities do. They're not happy with perhaps the way that he conducts himself and the constant lies, et cetera. But, if they have a decent paying job and their 401k has gone up some, they don't necessarily want to change horses. And that's one of the reasons why I think that, Biden is the best choice for the Democrats. Is he as progressive as I would like? No. Does he? Do I agree with every one of his positions? No. Is he the perfect candidate? If I was going to sketch out the perfect candidate that the Democrats could nominate, who would make the very best president, would it be Joe Biden? No. But you got to understand that people in a lot of these key electoral states, they may be willing to get to a place where they'll vote for incremental change in order to get rid of Donald Trump. But they're not going to turn the whole thing on its head and go in a completely different direction with a good economy. If the economy was not good, that's a completely different situation, frankly. I saw Bill Maher on, I think it was on Cuomo, or it may have been on one of the other shows, and he was asked whether he thought that if Barack Obama was running right now, the 2008 Barack Obama, whether he could beat Donald Trump. And Bill Maher said yes. Now, I have a lot of respect for Bill Maher, and I agree with 95% of things that he says, or maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but I disagree. I don't believe that 2008 Barack Obama could beat Donald Trump, frankly. I just don't. Not in this environment on where we're at right now. And I think there's actually a lot of individuals high up in the Democratic Party that agree with me, because I've had this discussion with many. Now, that's an academic discussion, but it goes back to what I said before, which is I think people are willing to make a change or consider a change, but they're willing to do it in an incremental fashion. So I think that a lot of Democrats are going to have to swallow hard. They're going to have to realize that while Joe Biden to many is not an A++ candidate, he's a very safe bet. You know that he's not going to run the nation off the rails. You know that he's going to reestablish some sense of decency for America and right the ship, if you will, so that we can begin to get back to normal.
All right, a few more questions for you, Michael, then we got to let you go. First of all, I know that Tucker Carlson, once again, your favorite guy, last night was speaking about you. He calls you the creepy porn lawyer again on his show last night. Were you aware of that? And do you truly think that this man is seriously obsessed with you?
Yeah, I wasn't aware that he had called me out on his show. I will tell you that Tucker and I have had a number of private text message exchanges over the last couple weeks because I've made it known directly to Tucker what I think about him and what he continues to do on his show, namely to go after me on the show while refusing to have me on his show because he's an absolute coward. He's the biggest coward on television. You know, look, I mean, if the guy wants a love letter or an autograph for me, I wish he would just ask.
Speaking of autographs,
I'll send him a picture. I mean, you know, it won't be the kind of picture he probably wants from me, but I'll send him a picture.
If you sent him a picture, what picture would it be? Can you say it on the radio?
I can't say it on the radio.
Okay, that's fair. Okay, so I heard a rumor that Stormy Daniels is going to be in town this weekend at Sapphire Pool, perhaps signing autographs. Is it true that you might be flying out just to get an autograph and get a picture with her? Is that true, or is that fake news?
No, that would be fake news.
Okay, that is
fake. Absolutely be fake news.
Okay, I just wanted to hear it from the source. Okay, fair enough. All right, last question for you. I guess it's kind of a serious question. For people out there that care about you, for people out there that are fans of yours, I know you're not here to talk about some of the legal issues that you're facing, and you can't, and I completely understand that. But can you give whatever you can say? Can you give people an update, number one, how you're doing? Is everything going okay? What can you tell us at all about how you are doing, and you know, do you think everything down the road is going to look okay for you?
No, I appreciate that question, and you know, let me say that I've received a lot of support from a lot of people, and it's really been flattering, and it's meant the world to me. You know, I am chin up, feet moving. We're plowing forward. We're going to deal with these matters in a systematic manner, the same way that I would if I was representing clients. In cases, one by one, and I am confident that when the facts and the evidence are presented, that I'm going to be exonerated. Mm-hmm. You know, the dilemma in today's day and age, when you are facing criminal charges and when you are someone who is in the public eye, is that you want to put evidence and facts and information out there for the benefit of the public because you are in the public eye and you want to protect your reputation and make sure that you are seen appropriately as to who you really are in the public eye. But at the same time, you have to be conscious of the fact that you have to be concerned about your freedom and the impact that has on your criminal cases. And that is a very fine, delicate balance. You know, the days, though, in my view, and this is, you know, people may disagree with me, but the days of being able to say, well, we're going to make no public comments and we're not going to say anything until the actual trial. If you're in the public eye, those days are over because of social media and the like. Because by the time you get to the trial, it could be over. And even if you're exonerated at the trial, if you've destroyed your reputation in the process, then you could be living in your own form of prison anyway.
Sure, and I understand that. I understand that, Michael, and that's why I'm not asking you to talk about details because, first of all, quite frankly, right now it's a lot more fun talking about Biff. I'll be honest with you. It's a better interview when we're talking about Biff and Tucker Carlson. But I know we got to take a break, Michael. I thank you so much for taking some time to join us. We always appreciate it, and we look forward to you coming on again with us next week. All right, man, have a great weekend.
See if you can find Chachi. I appreciate it.
I would love to get you two on at the same time. Mike, thanks so much for coming on, man.
Let me just say this. I know you need to go to break, but why is it that all these people always refuse to come on opposite me?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
It's like 0 for 4 right now. No one wants a piece of you, Michael.
I said it in the first segment, Michael. It's why I have respect for you is because you're willing to debate anybody, not just on this show, on any show, and we appreciate that. And I will always ask. That's all I can do. And Bayo respectfully declined today, but we'll keep trying, Michael. I promise you.
All right.
Thanks, Michael.
Thanks a lot, Mike.
I appreciate it. That's Michael Avenatti joining us as he does every Wednesday. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, super host Steve Sear. Oh, yeah, we got a lot to catch up to with this man. Coming up next right here on the Vegas Take on the all-new 101.5 FM, 720 AM KDWN. 720 AM KDWN. 720 AM KDWN. 720